everyone. For over 20 years, James Twyman, also known as the Peace Troubadour, has traveled to countries at war to share the prayers of peace from the 12 major religions of the world he put to music in 1994. He has been invited by peace organizations and even the leaders of countries from Bosnia to Iraq to Northern Ireland to South Africa, Syria, and more to initiate world synchronized meditations while battles raged around him. Each time, millions of people participated and miracles have followed. He's also the New York Times bestselling author of 15 books. He has recorded over 18 albums and has produced or directed 6 films. In 2018, James was consecrated a Franciscan hermit. He now lives in Ajijic, oh man, I hope I didn't butcher that, Mexico, where he founded Namaste Lake Chapala, an interfaith peace community. And today he's going to talk about what he's doing next, and he'll probably do a little singing. We might do meditation. Who knows? But welcome, James Twyman.
I'm not the house of cards that falls down easily. I'm strong enough to handle what you throw at me.
Welcome to Mental Health News Radio. I'm your host, Kristin Sunanta Walker. Just what are we going to discuss? The intimacy that is mental health. Let's continue to make it as comfortable as discussing brain health or heart health. This show has been on the air for several years and we have amazing co-hosts. And then we created a network of podcasters on mentalhealthnewsradionetwork.com, a place where every possible facet of mental well-being can be talked about openly. My show? After several hundred interviews, the format is this: intimate, deep, funny, touching, sometimes uncomfortable, but always vulnerable conversations with interesting people. The goal is to have you, our listening family, many of you who have become my good friends, feel as though you are listening in on private conversations. Thank you for tuning in and becoming part of this amazing journey with me and now with our network of podcasters. Just knowing this podcast might be helping any of you realize you are not alone on this journey called being a human being makes doing this podcast worth every second.
After all we promised, we'd be cordial.
James, thanks so much for coming on the show.
So great to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely. So how does someone who writes all these best-selling books and travels all over and does all these talks, how do you then just decide to go do an off-Broadway show and live by your wits to make it happen?
Sometimes I think I'm just insane, and I say yes to every inspiration that comes to me. But, that is a great way to live your life when you're saying yes to the inspirations that are given to you. And that's certainly how this experience was. As you said, I've had the opportunity to have so many beautiful adventures, traveling around the world, going to war zones and places, bring this message of peace. And then now to be able to do this musical and to share the book about St. Francis, to go to Broadway of all places. I'm just so excited, and especially the way that we're going to be going to Broadway, because I had the feeling that I can't go to New York and do a musical about St. Francis of Assisi and just show up and get a hotel or an apartment. I need to do something as he would have done it.
Right.
To travel across the country, doing about 16 or 17 events along the way, penniless, with no idea even how we're getting from place to place, where we're going to eat or sleep, in complete trust. And then to get to New York and do this show, which goes from February 20th to March 1st, and to have our primary audience. I don't think any show has ever done this in New York. Our primary audience will be people from the streets, the homeless, the disenfranchised. We're going to be on the street every day passing out tickets to these people, inviting them to come as our guest. And then we're going to have a soup kitchen where the people who are actually buying tickets are going to be the ones serving the soup.
Oh,
They're
nice.
going to be the ones in service to these people. So we're
Nice.
trying to do this as close to how St. Francis would have done it as possible. And that's very exciting to me.
I love that. I love that. So how did this particular, inspiration, why St. Francis of Assisi as an example?
Well, I've always loved St. Francis. Being raised in a very Catholic home, he was always around us. But for most people, it's always what I call the bird bath St. Francis. The Francis that we see holding a big bowl of water for the birds in our garden. And though that is a part of him, the Francis of nature and the Francis of ecology, it's actually a very small part of him because he was a radical in the 13th century. He changed the world, and it was his dedication and his passion that did it, not just feeding the birds. I'll give you one example. This is the 800th anniversary of something that happened in the life of St. Francis that I've always loved. It was during the Crusades, and the leader of the Muslim force, his name was the Sultan al-Kamil of Egypt, and he once said that he would give a Byzantine gold coin to any Muslim who brought him the head of a Christian. That's how serious it was. And Francis, as soon as he heard this, said, okay, I'm going. That's who I need to talk to. And of course, everyone, including the Pope, told him he couldn't, that he'd be captured and tortured and killed. And Francis said, it doesn't matter. This is the witness. And so he went with his brother Illuminato. And of course, they were captured, they were tortured, and they were sentenced to die. And there they were in prison, awaiting their execution, singing and dancing and celebrating. And the Sultan was so confused by this that he gave Francis an audience. And he was so impressed by this little Italian that he not only let them live, but he actually gave him a symbol of the Sultan's authority, which was an ivory horn, and gave Francis permission to travel anywhere throughout the Islamic world that he wanted to share this message of peace. And that's how Francis became the first interreligious peacemaker. So there's so many stories like that show a very radical, very committed Francis. And that inspires people even 800 years later. For example, when I decided to write the musical, one of the things that triggered me was a quote that I heard from a very unlikely source. I'll tell you a paraphrased version of the quote. Let's see if you can guess who said this. Basically, this person said, the revolution we started failed. What we really needed were 10 St. Francis of Assisi's. Who do you think would have said that in the 20th century?
I have no earthly idea.
Maybe
I
someone
probably
from
should,
the 60s, John Lennon, Martin Luther King, Gandhi. Those would be good guesses, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, the person,
Bob Dylan. No, I don't know.
Bob Dylan. It sounds like something Bob Dylan would say. It was Vladimir Lenin, the architect of the Russian Revolution. Himself an atheist, but he recognized something in Francis that he knew if they had 10 people like that, they wouldn't have needed a revolution. That's the power of St. Francis. So I just wanted to tell his story, first in my book, Giovanni and the Camino of St. Francis, which just came out. And then I decided to write this musical called Brother, Sun, Sister, Moon, which, as I said, will be traveling across the country on the way to an off-Broadway venue. And I'm having more fun sharing this musical and this book than I think I have ever had doing anything in my life. And I've done a lot of fun things in my life, but this takes the cake.
How awesome. So directing, you've also got films that you've done, writing, obviously singing, being a musician. So tell us something that you're not talented at and you wish you were.
Well, I wish I could play the piano. I play guitar. I play a lot of stringed instrument. At some point, I'll share a song from the musical, and I'll be playing what's called the Venezuelan cuatro. That's my favorite instrument right now. But if I could go back to when I was 5 years old, I would love to learn how to play piano because I've always loved Elton John, and I would love to be able to play those songs.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, why don't you go ahead and play something for us then?
Sure. I'm going to play a song or prayer that is often attributed to St. Francis. It's called the Prayer of St. Francis, though most people don't know that Francis had nothing to do with writing it. It was actually written around the end of the 19th century, but it does seem to capture who Francis was so beautifully. So this is the song that opens the musical. Oh Lord, Make me an instrument of your peace. Where there is hatred, bring your love. Where there is injury, pardon. Where there is doubt, your faith. And where there is despair, bring your hope. Where there is darkness, bring your light. And where there is sadness, feel our joy. O divine Master, grant that we may not seek to be consoled as to console, to be understood as to understand, to be loved as to love. Make me your instrument, beloved. For it is in giving that we receive, pardoning that we are pardoned, and in dying to ourselves that we live. Oh Lord, make me an instrument of your peace.
Beautiful. I already feel more peaceful.
Thank you.
So how do you get other people to go on this journey with you?
Well, you know, I think it's kind of like what Vladimir Lenin said. It's contagious. And when there's one, others are going to be inspired. And I think the first thing is if people are listening to this and they want to see if I'm coming to their city, they can just go visit the website. Just go to James F as in Francis, Twyman, TWYMAN.com. And they can, there's a link that takes you right to the page with all the information on the musical. You can actually watch 20 minutes of the musical, by the way, which we shot in Assisi just about 2 months ago. And you can also look and see where exactly we're going to be on this tour. So if we're coming to your city, or if you want to come to New York and help us be with the people who are going to be served by this, or even be on stage, or even inviting people to be part of the musical. And all you need to do to be part of the chorus is to go out and buy yourself either a sister or a monk habit, and you can be right there with us. So there are lots of ways to join us, but going to that website, jamesftwyman.com, would be a good beginning.
Right. And I'm looking at stfrancismusical.com. I went to, I don't know what it's called, forgive me for not knowing, but I went to, I guess it's where a lot of nuns worship together, or no, it's not called a temple, but it's in Assisi. And I always have felt close to St. Francis as well, even though I was not raised Catholic. And I remember going through and doing the tour of everything there and just overcome weeping.
Yeah. I'm not surprised. It's my favorite place in the whole world. I bring people to Assisi almost every year. These days I'm leading people on what I call the Camino of St. Francis Light. It's kind of a lighter version of the whole 10-day journey. And we have another one going in May. And once again, if you're on the jamesftwyman.com website, you can always just get part of our email list and we'll let you know. And of course, during the trip, I'll be posting things online. I'll be sending out emails letting you know where we are, what's happening. So it'll be a great way for people to follow along and see how St. Francis is making his way across the country.
Mm-hmm. So as you do this, is it going to be filmed so that it will end up like on Gaia where your other films are? Okay,
yes,
wonderful.
Exactly. My friend Bill Free is going to be coming with me, and we'll be shooting this whole thing. Just, not like a big shoot because we don't want to interrupt the moment, but we're going to be capturing as much as we can. So, and Gaia is probably where we'll be putting it. So that way we can share with even more people.
Right. I found the Moses Code on Gaia. I have to watch it. That would be my.
I have a few movies on Gaia.
Yeah.
And I think Indigo and Indigo Evolution are on there. So yeah, there are a lot of things on Gaia that we worked on.
Mm. What do you feel like, or are you so in the moment now that you're not thinking about it? But when you get these inspirations, like, doing this musical, what's kind of going on in your life, or do you have to put yourself in a specific state of meditation to see them, or do they just come to you?
They just drop in.
Gotcha.
Sometimes at the worst moments when I'm busy doing other things, but that's how we make God laugh. Tell him our plans.
Right.
Tell her our plans. But I actually live in Mexico. I have a beautiful spiritual community here called Namaste Lake Chapala. And we have about 40 houses, and we get together every morning at 9:30 and we sing and pray and meditate. So I have a very full life. It's quite extraordinary. But once again, I have never had more fun in my life than I have with this musical. So I'm just going to see where it takes us, and being able to do it in New York for 2 weeks.
It's amazing.
It'll be amazing to see what happens and see what comes of this.
Right, exactly. Mm. Well, thank you so much I know you're a busy man. Thank you so much for taking the time to come and tell my listeners about this.
So welcome, Kristin. Yes.
And listeners, thank you for tuning in. Don't forget to go to James's website. You can get there to many different domains, but worldpeaceplus.com is another place. Pulse. I'm sorry. World Peace Pulse. I see, this is a thing with me. I'm staring at it and I still say plus.
Or James F. Twyman. It all leads to the same place, but James F. Twyman is probably an easier one to remember.
And thank you too for putting up all of the Course in Miracles chapters. That's pretty awesome that you did that.
That's my path. I love A Course in Miracles.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much. And listeners, thank you for tuning in to another episode of Mental Health News Radio. Hi, listeners. I'll make it quick. These are some really cool places that give discounts and other cool things for listeners of Mental Health News Radio Network. If you want to get amazing help with healing from narcissistic abuse, go to healfromanarcissist.com. If you want CBD products that are the best of the best, I use them myself, go to proze.com and use the code mentalhealth20, mentalhealth20. If you want to get daily perk ups that help retrain your brain to think more positively, go to perkupdaily.com. And also, just because this one's fun, snarkycandles.com. I guarantee you'll love them. Snarky with a Y, SNARKY candles.com. And don't forget, if you want to hear all the shows on the network about first responders, you can go to firstrespondermentalhealthnetwork.com, and all of our shows that focus on narcissistic abuse, narcissisticabusehealingnetwork.com. Thanks for listening, and back to the show.
Sometimes I'm passive aggressive, but never without good intentions. I heat up and act on my emotions.
Thanks so much for listening to Mental Health News Radio. Our podcast can be found on iTunes, Stitcher, and hundreds of other podcast apps, or you can visit our website at mentalhealthnewsradio.com. If you have a question or would like to be a guest, become a podcaster on our network, or join the amazing organizations that help keep us on the air, please email us at info@mhnrnetwork.com. Get ready for that special goodbye from our resident therapy dog, Miles, and a special thanks to Emily Sohn for letting us use her incredible song Cordial for our podcast music. Listen to the full song on SoundCloud at emily.sonne.
Don't be surprised when I don't hate on you. After all, we promised we'd be cordial.